Hello and welcome to The Reality of Dreams. I'm your host, Robin Cunningham with Fireside Grace Ministries. Thank you for being here. Tonight we are continuing Daniel's dream from Daniel chapter 7, part 2, and we have some amazing stuff in here that I've discovered today while I was doing this, studying this. Not that I've only been studying this since today, I've been studying it for a long time, but came across something that was very interesting where the Antichrist is referred to as a female. So, let's go ahead and jump into this. Hopefully I've piqued your interest because it has definitely piqued my interest. You like that new beginning? I know I didn't have the 80s rocking out jam and stuff, but, I get tired of those intros after a while, so I just throw something in new and catch everybody off guard, right? All right, remember to like and subscribe, possibly here. I don't know where it shows up on your screen, but it's there. Comment where you're from and put your dreams in the section, or put your questions in the comment section if you have questions about any of this end times related stuff, and I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability, okay? So, let's see. Oh, Brandy said Brandy is doing a teaching tomorrow. It's very good teaching, so make sure that you sign in and see it. It's very good. She'll probably do it live. She usually does it live, but if not, and I can't give you a time because I don't know when she'll do it. She might do it at night. She might do it in the day, so we'll see. But I know that it's a good teaching. So make sure you check it out, and she will pray for healing for you afterwards. One quick pick-me-up from my sponsor, coffee. All right, are you guys excited about this? The whole 2 people who are watching this right now? That's okay. 2 people watch it right now, and then 1,000 people watch it tomorrow. So it is what it is. I mean, I thought the title was pretty cool. The female Antichrist. Like, everyone, I think you might be shocked by this, because I found this and was like, no way. All right, so where we left off last time was those great beasts, which are 4 kings which arise out of the earth. That's Daniel 7:17. Okay, now that's what the angel was telling Daniel of what the 4 beasts represented. All right, now the 4 beasts are 4 kings, and that says arises out. What it actually says in Hebrew is they were appointed out from the earth, and that's what the word translated to arise actually means. They are appointed. They're 4 kings which are appointed, meaning that they have an appointment, they have an appointed time, they are designated for such a time as that, and so forth. All right. Now, what we want to do is we want to go back to verses 4 through 7, which is what I basically focused on last time, and I wanted to preface this teaching with Daniel 7:17 so that we would remember, because I'm not going to read all of Daniel chapter 7, but so we can remember what was going on in the dream. I'm going to go back to the dream so we can remember that these are the 4 kings, okay, that are going to rise up. Very interesting that they should be kings when really it seems like they're more representative of 4 kingdoms, but I think that they're actually 4 kings also. But anyway, so the 4 beasts are 4 kings. It's an important thing to notice that in Daniel 4:7, in Daniel 4 verses 3 through 7, it starts to speak about how the beasts look, and they always call the beasts beasts. They never call the beasts men, so pay attention to that. And the only thing that, even the Antichrist, they don't ever call the Antichrist a man. I have noticed that they never call the Antichrist a man, but I didn't notice something else. But I noticed it today while I was reading Daniel chapter 7, okay? They always call the Antichrist a beast. In fact, the only thing that actually refers to the Antichrist as a man is the mark of the beast, right? Now you say, well, don't they call him him? Doesn't that mean that he's a man? Can you call a dog a him? Can you call a cow or a bull a him? So if there's hims that aren't human beings, then him does not mean that he is a human. It just means he. But found out something interesting about that we're going to get into by the end of this also. Okay, so let's take a look at verses 3 through 7. And it reads like this. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And a man's heart was given to it. Now, that word for heart is lebekha, which is its mind, will, and emotions, which means a man's soul and mind, brain, was given to a beast. So, a beast with the brain of a man. And noticed that it was picked up and had its wings plucked off, so it was altered somehow to take the shape of something that resembled a man and an animal. All right, verse 5. And suddenly, another beast, a second, like a bear, was raised up on its side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. That doesn't sound good. And first of all, I know people might be saying, oh, well, that's Russia and China, and this is talking about this place and that place and the king from the north and the king from the south. This is not. This is end times kings that are going to rise up. And also, you'd have to think, if 4 kings were going to rise up and one of them was Russia, then there's going to be 4 kingdoms, which means all of the other nations in the world are going to go, bye-bye. Even if it was Russia, all the other nations go, bye-bye. And 4 kingdoms emerge. Not 1 kingdom, 4 kingdoms. Then 10 kingdoms, then 1 kingdom. So the whole idea that, there's going to be they're trying to implement the one world order, like everyone thought they were doing with COVID and with this and with that. The one world order, they're going to make one supreme leader, and that's going to be Joe Biden or Marcone or, King, Prince whoever or King whoever, It's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's going to play out. There would have to be 4 kings first, then 10 kings, then 1. So the world gets war. You usually gain a kingdom through war and conquering, and then there's division. So let's move on, shall we? Verse 6, After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, a dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong one. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I learned so much from just tearing apart verse 7 right here, okay? All right, so we think the world is just all of a sudden going to be gathered to one, and it's going to be united, and it's all going to come under the Antichrist somehow. But we forget that there's a bunch of kings that come before it. So there's different reignings and ruling and so forth, okay? Now, as I discussed in the last episode regarding Daniel's dream, the mark of the beast is genetic alteration, and I have the verses to prove that. Jude 1:7. People say, well, what about Jude 1:7? Blah, blah, blah. It says this, referring to strange, they pursued after strange flesh. People hear the word strange, and in today's culture, you hear strange, and you think that means having sex with somebody that's not your partner, okay? That's not what strange means. Actually, in this case, it's the word heteros and sarkos. Sarkos means flesh. Heteros means altered or transformed. So alter or transformed flesh. So when it says they chased after or pursued or whatever it says in Jude 1:7, strange flesh, it actually says they pursued altered flesh. And from Genesis 14, we know and understand that the people who lived in Sodom and Gomorrah were hybrids, Rephaim. Okay, go read Genesis 14, figure that out for yourself, okay? Next, we have Romans 1:23. Now listen to this. Romans 1:23 says, And they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image like corruptible man and birds and 4-footed animals and creeping things. Now the word for changed here is alaxon. That's how I say it. I don't know if that's how you actually say it, because it's Greek. And it means changed, altered, transformed, or made different. Pay attention to that. And he's referring to who? The people, because Romans 1:20 says, from the beginning of creation, or from the beginning of time, God's invisible attributes have been made known, or however it is, so that they're without excuse, right? So this lets us know this is talking about the people at the beginning of creation, as it was in the days of Noah, the beginning of creation. And they did what? They changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image of corruptible man and birds and beasts. Well, again, alaxon means changed, altered, or transformed. So mankind is the image and glory of God. That's 1 Corinthians 11:7. It says, For a man not ought to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. So if they changed the image and glory of God, they changed their image. They changed the image that they were made in, the likeness of God, for the image of, in exchange for. They transformed God's image that we were made in for the image of birds and beasts and reptiles. So lizard people, bird people, beast people of all varieties. Okay? So now just one more time. 1 Corinthians 11:7. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. So we, being made in the image of God, are the glory of God. Do you understand? Do you see how this works? And they transformed the image, the glory of God, into a corruptible image. Anyway, so if they exchanged or altered, transformed that, they altered themselves so that they would no longer look like God. So this is what we're actually seeing in Daniel 7 and Daniel's dream. People say, well, it's just a dream. That's just talking symbolically. Some of it is symbolic and some of it is literal. This is a vision, which means even though it is symbolic, there's a literal meaning to it. The visions of the night are typically symbolic, okay? So here's something I find very interesting that ties into this and correlates into this, okay? Some unknown scientist leaked out some information on Reddit. He wouldn't share his name or stuff like that because he didn't want to get in trouble, but he was part of a group that was doing research on a Eco-biospheroc organisms, or EBO, and that's just a fancy way of saying extraterrestrials. Now, again, like I said, this can't be confirmed, but the people who are actually in the field that he claimed he was in read it, read the article, read what he put out there, and said this is, at the very least, he has a very extremely extensive knowledge of this field, and from what we see, nothing that he is saying is in error or sends off any red flags or alarms in this community, because this is how we say things. This is what this means. This is what that means. And this actually makes sense that this, that, and the other. It doesn't try to make up or exaggerate things to make it sound amazing. So I copied and pasted a little bit from this where it says, from the late 2000s to the mid-2010s, I worked as a molecular biologist for a national security contractor in a program to study exo-biospheric organisms, or EBOs. The aim of the program was to elucidate the genome and proteome basis of these organisms. Although the study of OBCs has been going on for decades in other programs, the new high throughput DNA sequencing technologies of the late 90s unblocked stagnant research in this area. Since then, several breakthroughs have led to significant advances in our understanding of the genome and proteome of these beings. What we've learned so far has enabled us to outline some disconcerting perspectives about our place in the universe. Briefly, we discussed that the EBO genome is a chimera of genomes from our biosphere and from an unknown one. So, that means that it is a mix of a bunch of DNA from our planet and an unknown DNA. They don't know what that is. Okay, so here's the interesting part about this. Okay, L.A. Marzulli discovered something very similar. So we have this person who studied these EBOs, or exo-biospheric organisms, under a cover for the United States government, and he wouldn't share his name and stuff, but even this stuff sounds like straight up legit, right? So we have this. He said this DNA came from Earth. It's a mix of a bunch of different DNAs and one unknown DNA. We don't know what it is. Could be angel DNA. I don't believe it's angel DNA. Could be DNA of the serpent, which is what I believe it is. But I don't believe that the serpent is Satan. I believe the serpent is Leviathan. That's in my book. You can read that sometime. All right, so L.A. Marzulli discovered something very similar. He was in Paracas, Peru, and he was led, well, ultimately it was by God, but he was led to a cave by somebody who lived in the area who knew that there were skulls, elongated skulls, in this cave of giants. So he went in there and he found those skulls, and some of them still had red hair. They had babies in a womb and all this other stuff, right? And he had the DNA tested. They went in with all their suits and gloves on and everything, had this DNA tested, and found out that the DNA was from Middle Eastern descent and an unknown DNA. And they said this DNA shows us, all right, that since this is human mixed with something else, this is an entirely different species of human being. but really it's altered flesh from the beginning. That's what those hybrids are. They're altered flesh, altered DNA, made to resemble something, but not God. Okay? And that's in his On the Trail of the Nephilim series, which you can get at lamarzulli.com/streaming. And I think it's not expensive if you're going to stream it, and you can stream it. I think it's for like a year or something like that. I don't know. I just bought the movie because I want to support the people that are influencers in my life, right? So I would recommend you go check that out and watch that, because there's actually a lot more in there, and I hope if that's tantalizing to you. But the purpose of me pointing this out is to show you that even though you can't technically confirm what I wrote about the person studying the exo-biospheroc organisms is true, he has the same verbiage and wording as what L.A. Marzulli discovered also. So you have a secular worldview and what they've discovered, and then you have a biblical worldview and what L.A. Marzulli has discovered, and how they have the same results. Okay? Now, moving along, in verse 7, so this is Daniel chapter 7, verse 7, we're still talking about this dream. It says, "After I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth." It actually says it had huge iron teeth in Aramaic. "It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Of course, we know the 10 horns is 10 kings, that's to come. So we know that this king that comes up has 10 other kings, and we know that from the book of Revelation and where that's going. One second here. So the word that's used for dreadful here is dekal, okay, in Aramaic. It's dekal. Comes from the word zakal, all right, in Hebrew, because they're both Semitic derivative languages, meaning that they both derive from a Proto-Semitic or Semitic language, okay? They shared the same alphabet for a while, then each branched off and did their own thing. Okay, so in Aramaic, this word means dreadful, and it means to slink along like a snake, okay? So it was dreadful. It was a serpent. It was a snake, okay? Now, the word that it derived from in Hebrew, zakal, actually means serpent. It means to be afraid, to be a serpent, or to do a work. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so one word means to slink, and the other one means to be a serpent. But they can both mean to be afraid or to bring terror or be terrible, able to bring terror. Okay? The next word that's worth looking at here is the word dreadful, and that's the word emtani. And this word means, it actually translates as terrible also. So we have the first word for dreadful, the second word, which is for terrible. It derives from the Hebrew word mauton, which means to be well-loined or to be mighty. So strong and well-loined. Okay, well-loined, it took me a minute to figure out what it is, because I had to pray, because there's literally nothing online where you say, what does well-loined mean? And what it comes up is, what did you mean well-lined? I'm like, no, I didn't mean a well-lined or a lined well or anything like that. Well-loined, what does that mean? And the Lord said, gird up your loins. And I was like, oh, okay. So I looked up, what does it mean to gird your loins? Well, this is where we find out what the definition of to be well-loined means. It means to be girded up, or to gird up the loins, or to be well prepared for battle. Because when you would gird up your loins, you would pull your tunic up, wrap it around your waist, and tie it off, almost so it makes like a wartime onesie. So that way your genitals weren't exposed when you were fighting in battle. And also so that you had more room and flexibility to move and stuff. So you would gird your loins. You pull up your tunic, you make this little thing, so that way you would run, you wouldn't be exposed, you wouldn't be vulnerable. Gives you a little more freedom, a little more protection, and when you're running as a male, you kind of want to have things kind of held together. So I'm not going to go anywhere else with that, but it was men who went to war back then. So just saying. So to be well-girded means this person is well prepared to do the task that they are at hand, and they're ready for battle at all times, ready for battle. Okay, now here's something that I found was interesting. I came across a word which meant she when I looked it up in Hebrew, but didn't have a definition next to it on Bible Hub, right? So it didn't have a Strong's number next to it. And I believe that they did it on purpose so that they could hide this because it didn't fit the bill of what the Antichrist is supposed to look like. All right? Okay, now listen to this. Okay? I said I saw the word la, and it was lamed hey. I'm like, what's this word? La or lech? I think it's pronounced la. It means her or she. Well, that's interesting. And then we see another word that comes up after it, which is baregleya. Bareglechya. Okay? Very interesting word. It means with her legs in Hebrew. With her legs. Okay, then we see it another time right after that, spelled a little bit differently, and it says baregla. And then we see that it says akal la, which means she eats. Isn't that interesting? Ooh, very, very interesting. All of those are feminine. Okay, now listen to this. All right, almost every single word that's used in Daniel chapter 7 from Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 has 35 words in it in Hebrew. Of that 35 words, 21 words are a feminine word, meaning that it's representing a feminine aspect of something. A female, it's the word that would be spoken about a female person. Okay? That means that 60% of the words used in that verse to describe the beast are describing a female or used in a female way. Kind of like in other languages, you have a masculine verb and you have a female verb. Like if you say Juanita, or Juanito, you've got the A at the end, the A, which makes it feminine, and then you've got the O at the end, which makes it masculine. Okay? So there are certain words that have like I guess you would say a feminine spelling or whatever you would say, but in this case, 21 of those 35 words are feminine singular. And the words that aren't used are when it's like a third person something or a noun of some sort, or Daniel's talking about himself. So I just thought that was very interesting that 60%, more than half of the words used here, are used to describe a female. Now, if we read this verse the way that it's actually written and what it actually means in Aramaic, it says, I'm going to read the first part and then we're going to move on to the next part here. It says, and huge teeth of iron she had. She devoured and broke the residue into pieces and trampled it with her legs. Also, just so you know, that word for with her legs, baregleya, also means to have a period or a woman's body part also. But in this case, it wouldn't make sense for her to trample something with her period or with her other body part, if you know what I'm saying. So that wouldn't make sense. So we have to put it in the right context here. So it's with her legs. So it actually says she has huge teeth of iron with which she devoured, because it was akala, and broke the residue into pieces and trampled it with her legs. And then it says, wahi, which means he, she, or it. Wahi. And then it says, and she was different. It actually says that. Wahi. And then uses the word different. The word different here means to be changed or altered. Again, changed or altered. Where have we heard this before? So what it actually says is she was changed or altered differently than the beasts before her. So this one is exceptional. This one is different from all of the other beasts and has been changed or altered more and differently, in a different manner than everything else. But it's still an altered beast. And apparently a female. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, this is just from, guys, this is why dream interpretation is so important. This is why we take it seriously. Because if I wasn't able to interpret dreams, I wouldn't have figured this out. Because God speaks the same way in this dream as he does in real life. Now you're probably saying, well, what about the book of Revelation where it says the Antichrist is a him and he did this and he caused them to worship? I thought that same thing. I was like, well, that can't be. This is wrong. So therefore, it must be my translation was wrong. Let me go check in the Greek just to make sure. Interestingly enough, it says that the beast is given all authority of the first beast in Revelation 13:12 through 18, but it is actually in Greek not ever referred to as a he. It is referred to as an it. It gave all authority. It gave this. It made them do this. It did this. Not referred to as a male or female, but as an it. Woo. Oh, man. I'm telling you, this is crazy. Let's just go check that out. Let's go to Revelation 13, verse 12. All right, let's go right here. Revelation 13, verse 12. Sorry, just got to pull it up here. And let's pull it into Greek. Okay, here it says, Kai 10 and the Exousian authority to proto of the first beast, Theru, and that is a gender neutral. That's a gender neutral singular. Interesting. Interestingly enough here, okay, we have a accusative feminine singular, which says and the authority, which is an accusative feminine singular also. Then we have two, which is a gender neutral gender neutral singular. And then it says proto, the first, which is also a gender neutral singular. And then the beast, which is also a gender neutral singular. Of all, which is pasan, which comes from the word pan, like pandemic, Pangea, which means whole or all. This is actually an adjective, so it's a descriptive verb, and it's an accusative feminine singular. And then it says it exercises, okay, on behalf of it. And this is a indicative active third person singular, then a preposition on behalf, right? Then we have of it, which is a possessive gender neutral third person. Are you hearing all of this gender neutrality that is being spoken here? And what is going on in the world today, folks? Gender neutrality, fluid gender, trans movement. Need I say more? Then we have Kai, which is just a conjunction, and causes, which is verb, present indicative active third person singular, and then it says 10, the, which is an accusative feminine singular, gen, earth, accusative feminine singular, Kai, conjunctive, those, which is actually a masculine plural. Then we have another preposition. Then we have a definitive feminine, or a dative feminine third person singular. We have another, you see here? Then we have a future indicative active third person. We have the beast, which is again a accusative neutral singular. So we have gender neutral, accusative neutral, and then we have feminine singular. But every time it's talking about the beast here, it's talking about either a gender neutral or a feminine neutral, right? Isn't that crazy? And it doesn't refer to the Antichrist as a he. It says it. Even when it says, and here's what it says in Greek, of whom had been healed the wound fatal of it. So, of whom had who had been fatally wounded. Doesn't even say he was fatally wounded. It says it was fatally wounded. It had been healed of the wound fatal of it. Well, where it says of it is auto, that's a passive pronoun, and it is a genitive neutral third person singular. Neutral third person. Get that. Is that not crazy to you? So the whole idea of the Antichrist being a male I think that there's actually more to it than just the Antichrist being a male. I think that there's a lot going on here. One of the things that I would like to point out is that in one of the books of Daniel, it says he is a man of fierce features. So let's look at that. And this is another one of the visions of Daniel regarding the end times. Okay, so we're gonna pull this up. This is Daniel 8:23. Okay, and it says in the latter time. So that's in the end day. So that's Uba-acharit. Okay. Which is the latter times, the end of days. That's where the Mormons get their name, the Church of Latter-day Saints, the end day saints, which, by the way, their doctrine is 100% New Age. You might as well be reading Alice Bailey's Externalization of the Hierarchy when you start to read the teachings of the Mormons. It's absolutely 100% the same thing, almost identical, except they try and throw Jesus in there, but so does Alice Bailey, okay? In the latter time of their kingdom, when have reached the fullness of their transgressors, shall arise a king, Melech, and that's a masculine singular construct right there, who has fierce features. The word as here was very interesting to me. As means fierce. This word means strong, mighty, or fierce, but it derives from a Hebrew word which means to be a goat, okay? It means harden, impudent, prevail, strengthen, be strong. But there's a little bit more that goes to it here. What it all comes down to is like Azazel, which means the scapegoat, Azazel, or however you say it. Then you have the Zuzim here. But anyway, the word for strong features, okay, that we see, it says he has fierce features and understands sinister schemes. What it actually says is he understands dark sayings, so he understands parables. Now, the word for fierce features here is panim, which means faces, multiple faces, and it is a noun masculine plural. So he has fierce faces, he has fierce faces. He has an impudent faces, strong or mighty, fierce faces. Isn't that interesting? Not fierce features, fierce faces. Means very harsh. Isn't that something? And then you see in the book of Revelation, as we just saw in Revelation 12 or Revelation 13, that one of the Antichrist's heads is wounded as though to death. And then in Daniel 8, it says that he has faces, meaning he has more than one face. And if we tie that in with Revelation 13, then we know that it's not just saying he has more than one face, it's saying he has more than one head, or it has more than one head. So this is what leads me to believe that it would actually be possible. That if the Antichrist has multiple heads, which we see in Daniel and the book of Revelation, that it's not just talking about the symbolic leadership of the Antichrist. Because the Antichrist is a beast, we see that. Every time Daniel talks about the end of days and the kings that rise up, he never calls them a human. He never calls them men. In fact, in the part where he's talking about the goats that were flying across the land, it says it was a female goat, but the word that it uses for female goat, and you have to read that in the actual Hebrew, it actually says a female goat. It uses the word zizim or zuzim. Well, guess where the word zuzim first appears in the Bible? Genesis 14, I want to say it's chapter 5. So, or Genesis 14, verse 5. So let's just hop there, shall we? I've been there so many times that it just literally just pops right up for me. And the 4 and 10th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him and attacked the Rephaim, okay, and attacked the Chazuzim, the Zuzites. The Hazuzim. Very interesting thing about this word is that it says here that it only shows up one time. It doesn't. It shows up in the book of Daniel also when it's talking about a female goat or the great goat that comes up with that's strong and destroys everything else, right? So this is the Hazuzim, right? Comes from the word ziz. Ziz means abundance and fullness. It actually, if you get down to it, it actually means breasted goat. it's referencing a female goat. So we see here that the Antichrist is mentioned as being more than one beast. Isn't that? I just find that extremely interesting. So that's essentially it. So if you have questions that you would like answered about this, I'm more than willing to cover the questions. Okay. Otherwise, I'll just wrap it up here a little bit early. Head downstairs. My wife has to go shopping, and I have the baby monitor here. So if the baby wakes up, I have to hustle buns anyway and go take care of him. He's not a baby; he's a toddler now. So, Betty D, how do I pay tithes to your ministry? You go to firesidegrace.com/partner with us. It's under the partner with us section or partner section. Or we're on PayPal. You can find us as at Fireside Grace on PayPal. Okay, let's see. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers. Let's just go take a look at that, shall we? Because I haven't read that also. But anyway, like I was saying, since there's multiple heads, what my theory is, so I just discovered this today, so I don't have all the answers about this. But what my theory is that if the Antichrist has multiple heads, then that could mean that there's a male head and a female head, or maybe they're gender-neutral heads. So one of the things that I discovered when I was doing research on this person who was doing these EBOs, Exo-biospheroc organisms, was that he said they were neither male nor female. They didn't have any, they didn't have buttholes or genitalia. And so they had nowhere to excrete food, and it seemed like the only type of food that they ate was some sort of high-protein, nutrient-rich paste or some sort of liquid that they would eat, and they would actually expel their waste through their skin somehow. And that's why, in doing that, they had this chemical that they had on their skin, kind of like a gluey paste kind of thing, and they would excrete these chemicals through this waste through their skin, and it would break down in the suit and would create an ammonia-type smell, according to this person who was studying EBOs. So let's take a look at Daniel 11:37 in Hebrew, okay? So it says, and the God of his fathers, that's Abatah, so noun, masculine, plural construct. Yeah, it's plural, okay? So the word for fathers, that's plural. It doesn't technically say of his fathers. It actually says the God of the God Elohe, the God of the Father, or God of fathers, neither Yabin. And that actually means will show, not he will not regard. He will not show. He will not discern. In Strong's it says he will not discern, understand, or consider. Okay, so what we have to look at here is what does yod mean? What does yod mean as a prefix in Hebrew? Hold on. Sorry, guys. He asked me this question and asked me to do research here on the spot, basically. So yod can mean he or they. So it could technically mean, it could be saying they will not, and that could be gender neutral also, which would kind of fit that narrative, but I'm not going to try and twist it to make it say what I want. I'm going to do more research into that and figure that out, because also where it says the person is an it in Revelation, it says it can mean he, she, or it also. You got to say that carefully and pronunciate he, she, or it, or else it's probably going to sound like you're cussing a little bit there. So we'll check that out. So let me just see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I am just going to wrap it up here. Okay, so I guess I'll wrap it up here. Thanks, Hulkma or Chokma or however you say that, for pointing that out. I love it. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up here, and I will see you guys on Monday, or on today's Monday, on Wednesday for tomorrow's headlines today. Make sure you sign in tomorrow for Brandy's teaching, and like and subscribe and share with all of your friends and family. Get the word out. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us or comment on this, and I will take a look at them and then maybe do a part 3. But as far as I'm concerned, part 2 is concluded. So love you guys. Be blessed. And until next time, bye.